does growth always have to be positive? I think oftentimes when we're thinking of the subject of growth, we often attribute it to some type of positive change in our own life. I think this in some way limits how we choose to change ourselves and our perspective, because a lot of times or sometimes people leave behind some things that are somewhat beneficial to them. Like they grew in the wrong direction. We have to be able to address once we're moving in the wrong direction. Because a lot of life is kind of trial and error. And if you don't see a path, then you have to create one. And if you see a path and you choose it, you're on the path of someone else. So in some ways, we have to be individualistic enough to kind of separate ourselves from the societal standard of our own growth and kind of take it into a one-on-one like individual level to truly see the value in the fruits of our own labor. Now, I'm not saying that negative growth is necessarily a bad thing. It definitely is a teaching moment. It's like you're being taught that what you're doing in this current moment just isn't going to work out for you later on. Like getting a negative feeling when you're doing something, or maybe coming to college and choosing the wrong major and you feeling like you have to change it. That kind of thing isn't necessarily negative. It's just teaching us ways at which that we aren't supposed to go. Like in my own experience, something that I did kind of leave behind, like because during quarantine I had so much time on my hands, it was actually absurd, and I kind of got into the practice of meditation to like kind of calm my mind down and kind of give myself a little break from the stresses of reality and such. So being outside of that kind of quarantine state, I found myself being like in my dorm or something, and I feel like a lot more anxious than I used to be. And I think that kind of change or spark, feeling like I didn't need that kind of stimulus or changing the way that at which I routined my life, doesn't make it a good thing. Something I also wanted to address was the kind of lack of sonder we have for the growth of other people. Like the way at which we kind of um, add a connotation to someone else's growth and experience. For example, like I feel like my friend is doing the wrong thing or going on the wrong path, and I think that, and I try to change his own course just because I feel a certain way about it. Now, with things like that, you have to realize that a lot of life is a matter of perspective. Like, my poison can be somebody's juice, you know? So, um, when referencing other people, we have to kind of take into account that a lot of their life has led up to that point. You know, their life has led them and taught them to navigate these circumstances to that very moment, and our life has not. I think the lack of sonder also impacts how we view our own growth, because we kind of mismatch it with the views of society. Like thinking that there's a specific way to get to a certain point rather than thinking that you're able to create your own path to wherever you want to get. It's like following someone who's taking the longest route, or thinking that that person is taking a shorter route than you can make possible. And in terms of routes and like the time we need to allocate in order to reach our dreams, I feel like we're all too impatient. That mixed with seeing people that are high up, we feel like they almost got there instantly. We don't take time to truly account for how they got to that point. Now, of course, there are like people like influencers who blow up on social media sites and such, who kind of get that fame and recognition almost instantaneously. The majority of those people who are majorly successful in their own craft, like creatively, have to had put in that work for themselves. You know, like we're too impatient. We kind of want that short term, instant gratification. I think that's also like stemmed from social media usage. Like we go on these apps to get our entertainment, and it's like we're getting it in small bursts in order to satiate our own mental. Like, it gives us mental relaxation to see these small bursts of entertainment and giving us small, really small doses of like dopamine. And when you do stuff like that, you start to um, become like more inclined to exhibit behaviors that only are focused towards these short-term gratifications. And since we do that, we expect everything to be kind of instant in that way. Like, we expect to get the fruits of our labor almost instantaneously rather than letting the seed fester and grow into what it needs to be. We give up on our dreams too early. It's like we almost are losing, it's like we're losing the day in expectation of the night. Because at the end of the day, it's night, you know? And we fail to realize that time is something that is not really real. It's more of a concept to make things make sense. All we're ever doing is existing within the present tense. So all you have is the now. And that kind of like fast forward future thinking is only, I don't know, projected egoism towards your own goals, thinking that, not necessarily saying that you think that you deserve it instantaneously, but you've been inclined to think that the world works in a way that is unbefitting of a fair and just society. Like, you shouldn't be able to get exactly what you want as soon as you get it, or else everything would lack purpose. And I feel like one of the reasons that we actually do have like purpose and meaning is because we weren't forced to have one. It's the absence that brings that necessity. It's that vacancy that brings the necessity for something to be there, you know? And I think that there's a difference between having a purpose and like all human life having meaning. Because I feel like if something is to truly have meaning, it's something has to be somewhat of a eternal thing. But in reference to like ourselves, we have to kind of project our own viewpoint in life in order to obtain this purpose and meaning. And the purpose and meaning of everything that's been said thus far is that growth takes time, and it's not something that's going to happen instantly, and it's not something that you can judge in reference to another person. The only true person you can reference for your own growth is yourself. How else are you going to be able to determine how you got to point A to point B in different circumstances when you're referencing another character? And it's almost like no one knows what's going on inside your own head in the same way that you don't know what's going on in anyone else's. So to quantify your own growth on a level with someone else without knowing their own internal monologue and them not knowing yours, you're only setting yourself up for like a either a rude awakening or a almost fabricated sense of a structured identity or worth in your own identity. Everything truly just is as it is.